we're really more like, it feels like we're kind of been fadey, but we're really been more stuck in like kind of a range the last 4 days. So this is, even though it's a large, like kind of painful range, it's more of a bottoming. It could be a bottoming formation too. Range is tricky because you get like one red day, one green day, one red day, one green day. That's the nature of, range trading in general. The market has been nasty. You're seeing more of an impact in the broader market in terms of like individual stocks, and necessarily the index is showing damage. This is like a 10% drop, but mostly like anything speculative is down 50%, 30%, so on and so forth. So I think there's that dichotomy of really being what's happening in the index versus what's happening, in terms of individual stocks that people like to trade. Most of those are going to be down, significantly. That's the beauty of the market, right? You want stocks to move in excess to the indexes. But this is an interesting thing. Part of it is just, obviously things were just really bloated. And, when you have stocks like Tesla that are sitting at $1,000, like who wants to buy that shit up there? Things get bloated. They have to come back down. On the other side of things, it looks like there might be just a lot of selling in some names to get back into like more like the reopening type of place, or like a little bit of rotation. Even though like the stocks that, if you like to trade tech stocks or whatever, those may be fading off, but like, you have a rotation into, these kind of like airlines. They've been holding up really well. DAL. UAL, these are all flag patterns essentially. So those are holding up really well. If you look at Wynn Casino, right, you got a nice, beautiful pattern over here. Now it's not as sexy as like, hey, I'm a battery company in Maine with, 1.5 charging stations at local gas stations, and I want a, $6 billion valuation. But you have some decent lookers over here. And that's where the real action has been, in these type of plays, or they're the ones that are holding up the most. On top of those, you have your, right, like bank stocks have been holding up really well. So, you have like your JP Morgans, or, your Visa, MasterCard, right, American Express. Right, so like these are the ones that have been holding up. So like if you're ever getting like smoked out in the market because you're doing kind of one type of trade, there's other stuff that will work. You just have to go out and find it. And so that's where the real action's been, right? Like if you saw the Dow yesterday, you busted out to all-time highs. Like how's that fucking possible? It looked like everybody was getting their balls kicked in yesterday. And here we are, like this thing is just trending. It's trending all day. So those are the things that you have to pay attention to when you're trading. Like if your longer term stuff is getting smoked out, you have to flip your portfolios and think, okay, like what's working? And even if you got to get into some more like, old man stocks, so what? Like this stuff is, these are the stuff that may be working. So that's just the nature of the game. And on top of that, right, you have like nice run in commodities. So like U.S. Steel, this is a nice rounding pattern over here. Once again, it's not as sexy as having, some third-rate battery company, but patterns are patterns, right? You have your oil companies. Like, this thing has been a heater. A lot of different oil companies out there. On TC2000, like you want to do a little quick list, you need to go in. Right, I've already made like a little combo list. You can come in here and, you'll have like a list of companies that you can flip through. A lot of these bad boys are still cheap. Like you can come in hot on some of these things. And there's a whole host of them that are, frankly, pretty good. Hold on, let me get the actual list. Oil combo. What you got to do is, combine the list into one. And then from here, right, you want to probably do just like a quick volume filter, and then you're good to go. So like this is something, there's names in here that are trending. Like you don't have to be getting smoked out in your trades. You don't have to be getting smoked out in your trades. There's a million sectors that are running around doing what they're supposed to do. The only thing that, hurts is if you're like in trading, the same stuff very rarely runs like back-to-back years. And so what I mean by that is like, if you're sitting there and like you made some money in some like SL turd or something in, right, 2020, we were talking about this when the year started. It's rare that, you get like a back-to-back year where it's like it's the hottest thing again. You'll always have to be just kind of mindful of those things. So just, different things to keep in mind of. Now let's take a look at the watch list. I don't know I think today is going to be tricky. The gaps have been fading every day for a while, but you are like building out a base. So what's happening is we're just stuck in a range. We've got a lot of support here, and we're just stuck in like a big kind of loose range. So you're kind of, popping up, fading off, popping up, fading off. My guess is, we could probably stay in a little bit of a range for a couple more days. We are starting to round. We do have a lot of support underneath. So this is like we have two opposite things. The price action has been shit, and the gaps have not been holding in the market. Like you can see yesterday, the market got dusted. But on the longer term basis, we still are in a big uptrend, and we've got tons of support underneath. So now we've got a crisscross of like what should be happening, what will happen, which is we got the support, but the price action stinks. The gaps have been fading off, but in reality, we're just stuck in a range. Like you would think after yesterday, we've been in some like monster cock downtrend for a few days. Not really. We've just been chopping around inside the range. It's just that's how range trading is. One green day, one red day, one green day, one red day. Easy enough. Now we just have to play these levels. So I think these are the levels that we need to be kind of mindful of. This is a 30-minute chart on the QQQs. This kind of 310 zone will be a little bit of resistance. And then we've got a ton of support at 300. And we'll have to trade around it. I think the plan for today, we can't chase up a 2.5% gap, obviously. We're going to have to let the market pull back. And when it pulls back, we'll have to make a decision. Do we fade this gap and go for the red roll, or do we buy the gap? We'll have to look at the price action, see how it starts to marinate on the first pull, and then we'll have to make a decision. There is no right or wrong answer. I fully suspect today we will be long, short, and then probably end up being long at some point. So, we're going to possibly fade the gap, hit the dip, fade it, so on and so forth, till this range starts to resolve itself. I know that's a more stressful type of trading, but what can you do? On the other side of things, once the trend sets, like so the open has been a little bit, consolidation-y the last couple days. I don't know what the proper terminology would be. But once the trend set, like it's been very, very clean. You had a lot of nice trenders, the last couple days. So I think, once the trend sets, there's more than enough range to pay yourself. So you don't have to kind of get caught up in the morning. Let's take a look at the stocks. The watch list, I think there's a lot of stocks like sitting on some nice support levels that we can trade around. You have your space balls. You got a nice pullback from 60 to 28, sitting on the 200 SMA. You got a good location there if the market wants to bounce. We've got our Peloton here. You got tons of support. It's just doing a little bit of a marination station right at the 200 SMA also. Now, once again, this is the dichotomy of you got a longer term support, but the short term price action has been very bad. So we'll have to kind of trade around this. I wouldn't be surprised to see the gaps fill on these a little bit to suck in some shorts, and then, we probably take a little bit of a bounce. I will say that, the market is gapping up because of the stimulus thing, and that thing has been expected. There has never been a stimulus bill that they didn't get done. Like, they always get done. So I don't know exactly what's going to be going down with that, but we've got a lot of supports. We got space. We've got Peloton. All right. Baidu's the GOAT. Even though it's not sitting on support, we'll day trade this thing back and forth just because, it's like a daily trader for us at this point. But man, you've had $100 pullback on this bad boy. I think you got a decent enough location on this. If the electric cars start to go, this XPEV is sitting on a big support level over here. I think, we'll have a chance on this one. If the market starts to go, like, I'd keep an eye. You can see like how you got a bottoming pattern here. Anytime after you get a big downtrend, if it starts to look like a W near the bottom of its downtrend, usually that's a bottoming formation. It may take a couple tries, but it's starting to try to bottom. I think we'll be okay on those. We're not going to need too many stocks today, by the way. If we need some shorts, longs, all these stocks can be flipped back and forth at this point because they have so much range. But I think another one that we'd probably try to bounce today is PDD. The 9 EMA on PDD is at 161, so we got like $16, $17 worth of upside. I think this is going to have a chance on them. And frankly, these Chinese stocks have had all the range, right? Like, they've had all the range. I think we give it a go on those. FSR, we got breakout pullback trade on this. Yesterday was a little bit nasty. It didn't fade off its gap too much, but I think if you take out Friday's highs, Christian, EH is probably too thin right now. I think in this market, like, you want to have a lot of liquidity. FSR, if it takes out Friday's highs, I think that one's got a shot. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. China. Yeah, China stocks have been notoriously weak here. I know everybody's asked about this GME, but I was watching this thing yesterday. Man, that looks like a lot of stress. Do you really want to come in hot on GME? I don't know. Pass. For me, pass. Like, I don't want the stress. I don't want the stress. Yeah, I mean, it's a heater. There's no getting around that. Like, it's doubled in the last couple days. But that's not, to me, that's just too much stress. I don't need that kind of stuff in my life. Yeah, junk. Yeah, a lot of these, like, EV companies are very oversold, but, like, where do you buy them? I guess you have to, they're back at their SPAC prices, which is kind of awesome. Like, the SPAC floors are usually like around $10. So you're right there. That should be the floors on these things. It's just because that's usually when the deals are announced, is around $10. RMO's actually gone under it, give or take. It might be a thing you tuck away, like 1,000 shares in an IRA or something, but it's hard to figure out where you buy these things. Like, for me, I don't know. But I'm not an investor, right? I'm not Warren Buffett. These Bitcoin stocks, Bitcoin's at 55,000. Now, these things have been fading off their gaps every day too, but Bitcoin's going a monster cock run right now, all morning. If the market holds, these can hold. So you can't chase the gap up on these. Let them pull back 9 EMA, 20 EMA-ish. You'll start to see them grind, and then if they hold, we should be good to go. They're due. They've consolidated now nicely for almost a month. We've got yourself like a nice location, right? Or 2 weeks, I would say. But we got ourselves some nice locations on this. These are broken charts the last few days. But I feel like it's been feeling like they've marinated enough where we should be able to get a little bit of action on these bad boys. I'd stay away from this stuff like eyes, guys. This thing is $1. It went to 26. Like, this is that's right for you ending up getting a divorce. That's right. That's right for you getting a divorce. It ain't right. It don't look good. You can't buy something that's like a buck at $27. I mean, you can, but what's the point? On the cryptocurrency side, there's some really good ones here. This Sol is like a perfect trend. A perfect and clean trend. You've pulled back to the 20 SMA. You've actually remount. You've tapped into it now multiple times and busted back over. This is out of a 5 stars, I would say this is about 4-star setup here. I mean, you got yourself a remount over the EMAs right now. Nice trend on the 15-minute chart. You can see just the way it moves. It moves very clean, the ebb and flows of it. It looks fantastic. It's great, people. That's a beauty right there. This BNB coin, this is another one that's got like a beautiful trend on it. You got a nice rounding bottom over here. Stocks, coins, it's all the same rules. They get their power from consolidation. They get their power from basing. When you get a big, long trend and you get a month of sideways, tight action that allows the buyers to refresh, it can be very, very powerful. I think both of these, I mean, they're ready. They're ready to party like right now. I'm watching the 15-minute charts on these. Dot is another one. This looks like a fantastic setup. This is like an Ethereum competitor, basically, in a way, but it's not. You got a nice dots, not feathers. That's what people used to say to me when I was a kid. Are you dots or feathers? It's fucking racist, right? What the things that you have to go through as a young Indian man just trying to find himself in America. Test. If it gets, man, this thing looks ready to party, don't it? It looks ready to party. So you get yourself a nice, this is a 1-hour chart here. You can go on different time frames and kind of even it out here, but you're starting to get there. I think this thing's, we're just ready to party. This Sol I'm already in. I think, what did we had this like 2 days ago? A day ago, give or take. Just stop under the 20 SMA with you got to give it a little bit of room with these things in case they wick out. But it looks fantastic. You can see here this Ethereum. It's already a little bit extended, but it is making a run towards its highs. Bitcoin's got a nice rounding pattern. You got to run into 58,000 on these things. They're looking pretty good. I think a couple cheapies that are looking like they're setting up here. This Quantum, this is a $2 one. It got up to $9. You pulled back into the 50, but you're starting to kind of flag out here over the 6 spot. And you can see here on an hourly chart, like you're starting to build out some levels. That thing is hot. Like that thing is, it's ready. It's getting ready to go. This thing is getting ready to go. I got a whole watch list of this stuff. You guys can have it if you want. There's some good lookers coming in out of this group. You gotta get in the game on these things. Gotta get in the game on them. Oh yeah, you got to. Dogecoin, that one's a little bit tricky for me. But let's go back into this. So I think our focus, we want to bounce some of these Chinese names that have been just getting, shamangled here. Baidu, PDD, these are usually our faves. But we can't chase them up. We got to let these things pull back. We've got space on the 200 SMA. I think Peloton is probably my favorite for today. That's also because it's got the best combination of liquidity and range. This is also sitting on your 200 SMA. And there's a whole host of stocks out there that are doing that. Like if you want something a little bit more long term, this Qualcomm is sitting on its 200 SMA. So you want to be looking for oversold stocks. I think that ZM is a broken chart at this point. There's no, I don't know if it's a good company, bad company. That has nothing necessarily to do with it. But the chart itself is just in a very, very odd spot. It's in a downtrend, so it ends up being like, how long do you have to sit through it? I just don't know. If we need another bounce one, this TDOC, this is telemedicine. This thing was 300. It's got down to 160, so it dropped almost in half. You got a whole shitload of support underneath. Like that one's going to be good too. Now the issue with Teladoc is what? It's thin little bastard. There's a spread on it. It can stress you out a little bit. So you got to just size accordingly. Like you can't be just balls deep on this thing. because the spread on it might be $1. Ryan, I'm just doing equities. There's really no money in options for the most part. I never met anybody. I met 2 people in my life that make money trading options. This doesn't happen. It's too boomer bust. Like, you end up hot, you have $5,000. Next thing you know, you have $75,000, and then you're back to $10,000. I never met anybody that trades them good day in and day out as their sole mechanism. Palantir, not really sure. I think we go space, we go Peloton, we could even try some Run, Teladoc, and then we got these Chinese names, and then we leave everything else alone. Yeah, Tesla might be bouncy, but it's also in no man's land. And you know what? Tesla's just a thick little noodle these days after the split. It's Algo City on this thing. It doesn't bring out good behavior, I've noticed. Yeah, if you need something that's, a little bit more speculative, probably like this Tiger. This is the Robin Hood of China. Whatever that means, right? But this is probably due for a little bit of a bounce. But like a lot of these stocks are just in no man's land. They'll need a little bit of work to get going. But I think we stick with liquidity. We stick with quality today. And the plan is like, okay, these dips, they haven't been holding, but we are getting to that oversold kind of, we get the stimulus out of the way, all this kind of stuff. Let's see how the first pullback holds. We'll start marinating in it. And if it holds, we'll start adding to it. I'd scale in half sizes today when you're day trading. Look for rounding patterns, your EMAs to hold, and you take a tester. If it starts to work, you can add to it. And I think we're probably gonna have to be, long short a couple times today. All right, cool. That's the list. I'm sticking to it. Tease nuts. Cool. Let's do it. Let's have some fun. Tease nuts. Fuck, man, what a name. Tease nuts.